Dirk Schreckenberg, please. We will hear about annoyance and sleep disturbance. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the kind introduction. So welcome back from the lunch. I hope you have had a good lunchtime. And okay, so we will start with the first contribution to the noise session. It's on annoyance and sleep disturbance. Why that and not cardiovascular effects? It's because annoyance and sleep disturbance are both the acute and midterm effects that on the long run can contribute to cardiovascular and other diseases. And this contribution, it's specifically on the disability weights. So you have to know that last year there was a new publication from WHO presenting a study where the disability weights for those health outcomes that are known to be associated with environmental noise were studied, and these new disability weights identified. So regarding conflict of interest, I have several, because I come from a private psychological research company, and all what we do is a scientific work that is commissioned by someone, mostly public authorities, but also sometimes by industry, in this case aviation industry, or organizations representing residents. All in all, I think the conflict of interests are somehow balanced. Okay, so the agenda is that I first want to report about the burden of disease results from WHO 14 years ago on environmental noise, and then I will present the new study on the disability weights, and then we can see how it's what it means for the DALI estimation and for value definitions. So in 2011, the WHO published a report on burden of disease due to environmental noise, and came to the conclusion that about 1 million healthy life years are lost every year due to transportation noise in Europe. And this is mainly due to annoyance and sleep disturbance, and not because annoyance is such a severe health outcome, but there are many, many people suffering from high annoyance, and also many more people suffering from high sleep disturbance. But also ischemic heart diseases, cognitive impairments in children, and tinnitus are affected by environmental noise. Okay. You know this probably, that the DALIs calculated, so disability adjusted life years, are the sum of mortality and morbidity. And the morbidity, the years lived with the disability, is a product of the incidence, the disability weight, and the length of time lived with this disability. And here we have the disability weight. So they range between 0 and 1, 0 indicating perfect health and 1 indicating equivalent to death. And the question for this burden of disease study for environmental noise at that time, 2011, was, okay, how to define the disability weights for those health outcomes that are already included in the global burden of disease studies. Was not such a problem. Like here you can see for the cardiovascular diseases, you have several disability weights for myocardial infarction, angina pectoris, ischemic heart disease, and so on. And for the assessment of the DALIs for environmental noise, the research group for WHO at that time decided for the highest disability weight, 0.505 for acute myocardial infarction. But I saw in later documents and publications that this disability rate for myocardial infarction was also then used for ischemic heart disease. So some researchers seem to be a little bit flexible on that. For the other health outcomes of environmental noise, it was a little bit more problematic. So there doesn't, at that time, there was no disability rate for cognitive, for the impairment of children's cognition. So what to do? The research team at that time looked at similar health outcomes and looked at the disability rates there. And they decided for the contemporaneous cognitive deficits and take this disability rate 0.006 for children's cognition. And for noise-related sleep disturbance, it was similar. We have already in the global burden of disease study the disability rate for insomnia, but sleep disturbance or high sleep disturbance because of environmental noise or induced by a noise is not the same as insomnia. So the severeness is not the same, and therefore the research team decided at that time to look at small-scale studies where I think they found 3 studies where expert judgments were collected, and the studies had 13 to 45 experts judging on the disability rates for sleep disturbance. And here they came to the disability rate altogether 0.070. And for noise annoyance, same situation. There didn't exist any disability rates before, and they looked at or conducted small-scale studies with expert judgments on severe annoyance, on communication disturbance, or other kind of disturbance, and used the median of the disability rates identified in these small-scale studies with large uncertainties. So these were the disability rates used in these 2011 reports, and based on this, the DALIs were calculated. And the problem with these disability rates was that they come from different sources, and different approaches were used to define the disability rates from the global burden of disease study, from small-scale expert ratings, analogies, and so on. And they come up with large uncertainties, particularly those that, for those health outcomes that are noise-induced but not included in the global burden of disease studies. So it was clear that new research on disability rates is needed if you want to improve the health impact assessment for environmental noise. And for this, the WHO, end of 2019, beginning of 2020, commissioned a study on disability assessment for noise-related health outcomes in Europe. The research team is from University of Rotterdam, the team from Juanita Haxma, and they were accompanied by a coordination group consisting of noise effect experts and experts on burden of disease assessment. And this was coordinated and managed by the European office of WHO. We have 2 publications from this study, the report by WHO and a peer review article by Karalampus et al., and both published last year. So the study, or the disability rate assessment, was conducted in 5 steps, starting with selecting the health outcomes, selecting the persons that have to judge the disability rates, or they have to judge the severeness of the health outcomes. The evaluation technique had to be developed and identified, and then finally we have the disability rates, and these were looked at with face validity. So altogether, in a scoping review, 82 noise-related health outcomes were identified in 8 categories of health outcomes. You can see here, from cancer, metabolic effects, cardiovascular effects, mental effects, and so And the study was not conducted with experts, it was conducted with the general populations in 4 European countries, from the north, south, west, and east. And these countries were selected because there were previous European studies on disability weights not related to noise only, so these countries were selected for reasons of comparison. Altogether, 4,000 participants were participated in this study. It was an online survey. And the way the severeness of the health outcomes were assessed was in terms of pairwise comparisons. That is, altogether, all the 82 health outcomes were assessed, but each person assessed the health outcomes in 13 comparisons. So they received 2 descriptions of 2 different health outcomes, and the question was, person A on the left side has these and these description and these symptoms, and the other has other symptoms. Who do you think is healthier overall, the first one or the second person? And this is just for myocardial infarction, the description, differentiate between infarction within the first 2 days and then afterwards. And so only the symptoms are mentioned and not the health outcome itself. This was a little bit different for annoyance because it was not clear how to describe the symptoms of annoyance. Therefore, the description was directly that a person is annoyed by loud noises in the surroundings, or is moderately annoyed, or is severely annoyed. And for sleep disturbance, there were 2 assessments. One stating, one description was that the person has difficulty falling or staying asleep, and the other description was that the person has difficulties falling or staying asleep because of loud noises. And these are the outcomes in the right column, the new results, the new disability weights, and in the middle column, the old ones. And for cardiovascular diseases, it was more or less quite similar, and similar to those results we know from the global burden of disease studies. For sleep disturbance and noise annoyance, the situation considerably changed, in particular for sleep disturbance. In 2011, we had the disability weight 0.07, and now we have 0.01. And for noise annoyance, we had 0.02, and now half of this, 0.01. So severe noise annoyance and high sleep disturbance, or sleep disturbance due to noise, is assessed in the same way. And also now we have, for the first time, disability weights for cognitive impairment, reaching from 0.013 to 0.096. And the European Environment Agency this year in April or May, I think, published a report on the health effects of environmental noise in Europe. And depending on the contours within where the health outcomes are assessed, we have DALIs calculated with this new disability weights ranging between 1.3 million years lost per year to 1.7 million years lost per year, with all the difficulties we have to face when we calculate DALIs, which were discussed before lunch. And it's quite different from the estimates in 2011. In particular, you can see this for sleep disturbance. Okay, last slide more or less, or last topic, where can you use the disability weights also? And they, in fact, were used for the environmental noise guidelines in 2018. Based on the different disability weights, the health risks that are accepted, or where the threshold of acceptance of the health risks are, were more or less defined. So 10% for hypertension because the disability weight is lower than 5% for incidence of ischemic heart diseases, where the disability weight is higher. And then, first, based on the disability weights, the health risks were identified, and this then was translated to the decibels that were recommended by the WHO. This is, these are the steps that were done, and this approach, these 3 steps, first define the health outcomes, and then translated into PM 2.5 or decibels or whatsoever, is an approach the WHO has taken, and it's also an approach used in Switzerland by the EMPA. This is a committee for noise abatement, and we did it also in Germany and proposed protection concepts for aircraft noise using also this methodology of how to come to threshold values based on disability weights. Okay, thank you very much.